Call the Kitty Hawk Town Council meeting to order, June 2nd, 2014, at Kitty Hawk Town Hall at 6 p.m. Welcome everybody that did come out tonight. I hope you've had a good day. We've had a couple of pretty good days, to be perfectly honest. Even though the beach, I understand you can't swim onto it. So when it gets nice, we don't let you swim. Let's have, if everybody join us with a moment of silence, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? All right, I hear a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. We have public comment, and the general public's invited to address the council. We ask that you keep it to approximately 3 minutes. Lynn, do we have anybody scheduled for?
Yes, sir. Joy Light. Thank you. I have a complaint against Charter Cable that we had a brand-new RV delivered from the factory, custom, inspected before it arrived at the Kitty Hawk RV the end of March 2013. Mr. John gave us free cable. It was inspected here, a certified license before it left the RV place, and here it was gone over. Mr. John gave us free cable for 3 days. It worked perfect. They hooked up our cable, our computer on Friday. Monday came back. The gentleman that came in had charter uniform, charter clipboard, charter truck, said he had to drill a hole through the wall in our RV entertainment and hook it into a wire. He had taken the plate off. Unbeknownst to us, he was not licensed. He was not authorized. He was temp labor. And to make a long story short, Brian Tate, the supervisor, and he worked for Prince. He wasn't even a charter employee. Brian Tate came out. It never worked. When they come to your house, RV, whatever, they hook your stuff into their auto, in their computer. When they leave, it goes off. And your cable doesn't work. You pay $45 for another visit. They come out, they hook it through their truck computer. Doesn't work, $45. We have charges. Brian Tate, the supervisor, came out. It was a problem. The line outside was good, problem in our RV. He had his hands in our wall playing with our electric for almost 2.5 hours. He's not an electrician. He's not a media specialist. He shorted out our PlayStation 3. The computer went. The media, all the media. Numerous people were sent in over the course through the end of May, beginning of June last year. Nobody fixed it. I left, went home with my son, who's very ill, to Maryland. Came back. My husband drove here to talk to Charter and to try to work it out over the summer. Came back in September, stood in their office day after day till Brian came in and talked to me. He said, "It's not fixed." I said, "No." They sent in ACI. I have pictures of ACI with all the wires out of the wall, with their jackets, working on our electric. To make a long story short, I asked them, "Who's the electrician?" They all said, "Not me." "Who's the media specialist?" "Not me." I wrote it down. And I had them sign the paper before they left, and with their names and dated, that they didn't fix it. And I listed everything that was broken: the HDMI cable, the computer, the this, the that, the other. Dell gave us a new computer. Charter will do nothing. The Attorney General's office said we have more complaints against Charter than all the businesses combined in the state of North Carolina. The Department of Justice said they've never seen a well-documented case like ours. I took pictures of these people with their hands on our electric hanging out of the wall. To make a long story short, the second air conditioner went, all the lights on the outside. We have a debt to the bank for something we've paid on for over a year that we're giving back, which is, we're taking a hit to our credit. We're gonna be sued. Charter will do nothing, Prince will do nothing, ACI will do nothing. Nobody's making them do anything. And New Year's Eve day, at 5 a.m., my son woke up and he couldn't breathe. And I went for the breathing machine. I plugged it in, it was here at the RV. We went home to Maryland for the winter. And it didn't work. Thank God I had a backup. He wouldn't be alive right now. I spent New Year's Eve morning buying a new breathing machine at the pediatrician's office.
Ma'am,
Yes.
I certainly appreciate all of the issues that you have, and I think all of us at one time or another have had some issues with charter, but I'm not real sure any of us sitting here know how we can assist you. And unless the attorney has something, you can vent your frustrations, but that's about all I think we can help you with. Am I wrong on that?
No, I think this is beyond anything that we could do with the
Right.
franchise agreement.
Unless you put pressure on them, because we're not the only people that they've shorted out houses, that they've messed up places. If you were to put pressure on them, like Representative Tyne is, and we have some of the senators trying to do legislation, because our case is so documented. They said they've never seen such a documented case with pictures and everything. The
all right.
Department of Justice.
All right.
If you can,
Here's what I'm going to ask the manager to do. I'm going to ask the manager to look into, first, call charter and document what you've been telling us. And then second, I'm going to ask the manager to see if through the Attorney General or our representatives, if there's anything that the town itself can do by stating your case to them. And I think that's about all we can do, but then the manager can get back to you with whatever he's able to find.
okay.
All right.
I brought a pamphlet of our documents.
All right, just leave that with the clerk and we'll go from there.
Yeah, because we came here for my son to heal. We've been here, coming here for almost 8 years. We have a property in Duck. We own a lot. And this is where we wanted to retire. My husband's retiring June 30th after 36 years in the school system in Maryland. We can't afford to have this on our credit. We can't go get another retirement, we
Okay.
can't do anything.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Where do I put this? Okay, thank you. And I asked everybody to pray for Tyler. He's left.
Thank
Thank you.
All right.
Just out of curiosity for fraud and misrepresentation, because they were wearing charter uniforms, charter clipboard, they don't work for charter. Why can they wear a company uniform want to do or pay by?
Well, the manager will look into it and see what we can find out.
Thank you.
All right, Lynn, is there anyone else signed up?
No.
Does anyone else wish to speak at this part of the public hearing? All right, let the record show no one else came forward. The consent agenda. Are there any changes to the consent agenda? Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And there were no items removed. All right, now we need to go into a public hearing, and we're going into the public hearing for our fiscal year 2014-2015 proposed budget. The proposed budget of $6,985,633 is based on 32 cents per $100 evaluation. 2 cents is dedicated to storm damage reduction. And the public, if you come up, is asked to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Do you hear a motion to go into public hearing?
I move to go into public hearing.
Do I hear a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We're now in public hearing. Lynn, has anyone signed up?
No, sir.
Does anyone wish to speak at this part of the public hearing for the budget? No? It's probably going to get passed. All right. Since no one came forward, do I hear a motion to go back in regular session?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Now we're at the point where we vote on the budget. Do I hear any comments? Any further comment? We've been through a couple of workshops. If there's no comments, we'll need a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the fiscal year 2014-2015 budget document and all its contents as presented by the town manager. I further move that the tax rate for the fiscal year 2014-2015 shall be 32 cents per $100 valuation.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? John, we have a budget.
All right, thank you.
All right. Next, we have planning. And we have a call for a public hearing on a zoning amendment. It's application to rezone a property at 223 West Tateway Road from low-density beach residential to medium-density beach residential, BR2. Do I hear a motion to call for a public hearing?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to call for public hearing, application to rezone the property at 223 West Tateway Road from low-density beach residential to medium-density beach residential. A public hearing is requested to be scheduled for the July 7th, 2014 Town Council meeting.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, public hearing for next meeting. Next, we have a preliminary subdivision plat revised, and this is for an application to re-subdivide something that was done a couple of meetings ago, actually. So, Joe, do you want to start us on this? I think there's going to be some discussion by council members, but let's get you up and running first.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Perry, members of the council, and members of the public in attendance. This evening, just wanted to share some of the changes with you. As Mayor Perry referenced, this is a project, the West Village subdivision, that was approved, a preliminary plat was approved for it back in December 2013 by the town council. At that time, the proposed subdivision had 30 lots. At this point in time, the applicants have submitted a revised subdivision proposal. So it would be a revision to the previously approved preliminary plat that would divide the 22.31 acres into 29 lots. And what I'd like to do, just to start, we can obviously get into any issues in more detail, but just wanted to touch on the changes that were made. The council has looked over and approved the bulk of this project. And the majority of the design and layout and specifications of this subdivision have not changed from the original approval. But the things that have, I'm going to start with the item that caused the need for all of the changes. And that is, if you look on it would be the third page of your subdivision materials there, the back page, on lot 19, all the way at the rear of the subdivision there, the southernmost end, you'll note that now the applicant has specifically designated and located a 30-foot wide easement that goes across lot 19. If you'll recall, with the original approval that the council gave this project, there was an undetermined, the location was unspecified, undetermined, for a 20-foot wide easement. And we had very specific discussion about the fact that the rationale for the 20 feet was that then the lots behind this could not be further subdivided, while it would provide access to the lot back here owned by Jimmy Ray and Deborah Scarborough. It would not allow for further subdivision that would increase the number of lots off of West Village Road above 30. What has occurred in the interim, in my discussions with the applicant, they've shared with me that as part of their negotiations to purchase the properties, the 4 properties from the Scarborough family, one of the requirements that the family had is that there be an ability to subdivide this property located to the south. I did have an opportunity to meet with the Scarboroughs and talk with them about their needs and what they wanted out of this, as well as the applicant. And what the applicant has done in providing this easement is create an opportunity at some point in the future, if and when they desire, for the Scarboroughs to improve within this 30-foot easement a 20-foot wide road leading back to the property, and then that their property could be subdivided into as many as 3 lots, so that one parcel could become as many as 3 at the rear of this subdivision. So the changes that have been made are all a result of that decision to provide that easement. So the first change is that we're looking at instead of a 20-foot wide undetermined easement, it's now a 30-foot wide easement within this location as shown on the plat. One of the things that had to occur to accommodate the additional subdivision was that the developer had to reduce the number of lots overall from 30 to 29. So that is occurring within this stretch right here with lots 19 to 24. This is where they lost the lot there. So these lots have all been reconfigured. The lot lines from 19 through this line here on the southern end of lot 25 have all been shifted to some degree. What that has done, in addition to making these a little bit larger lots, they've also been able to reconfigure some of those lots. If you'll recall, some of these lots were narrower at the front and then widened toward the back. They've now been able to take those lots and make them a little more typical rectangular configuration where they're not, they meet the width requirements at the front of the property as well as the rear. So it's a little better situation from that standpoint. So these lots all changed. And then the other main change that resulted from this takes place at the front here on lots 1 and 2. Basically what has occurred, you can, if you're looking at that page, which would be the second page in the attachments, originally lot 2, if you see where this dashed line runs here, that was the boundary for lot 2. And lot 1 connected all the way over to West Village Road, and it was more of an L-shaped lot that then came over and up in that configuration like right there. So what has been done is that part of what was originally lot 1 has been given to lot 2, and both of these parcels, lot 1 and lot 2, are going to be limited. There's a note on the plat that states that these lots, the access to these lots and how they're going to tie into the water line, all of that is going to occur toward Kitty Hawk Road as opposed to West Village Road. So these lots are now oriented toward Kitty Hawk Road. The key to that, why the developers chose to do that, is that there is a limitation on, just say if they go above 30 lots coming off of West Village Road, there are some additional requirements that kick in that are costly and a little more problematic for the development. With the additional potential for 3 lots on the Scarborough property, the developers in this case were seeking to limit there's the 27 lots that would have come in off of West Village Road, so that if and when the Scarboroughs create 3 additional lots, it still would not exceed 30. So that's why they're choosing to orient these lots toward Kitty Hawk Road, so they are no longer counted toward that 30 in the, with the fire code standards and what would be applicable to this project. So that's the rationale for why they chose to make that change. The other things you'll see on there are that on these lots, whereas all the other lots, the front setbacks are located off of West Village. You'll see here the 25-foot front is off Kitty Hawk Road, and it's only a 10-foot setback on the sides. So you'll see a few other differences there. The one change that the staff and planning board discussed regarding this is you'll see on your, if you look closely at Lot 2, there is designated on there the area of the wetlands. You can see where that line kind of comes in this area, and then you have another little pocket of wetlands up here right near the corner. One of the concerns we had was that with this easement being shown here as an easement area for the septic system for Lot 1, that would actually be located over here is what they proposed, that it only left this little narrow, it's about 20-foot wide area where a driveway could go. And that area is pretty close, somewhere around 40 to 45 feet from the intersection here. And that's pretty tight. It's not, you want to try to eliminate, in design, try to eliminate turning maneuvers occurring that close, because it ends up in confusion and possibly accidents. So with that in mind, we had a discussion about that. The applicant's engineer, who is here tonight, noted that a driveway could be located, that this area is really a repair area for the septic system, not the physical location of the septic system, and therefore it can be driven across, and you could locate a driveway across this area. So one condition that the planning board added in their recommendations to the council was that there be a 100-foot separation from the intersection to where that driveway is located, to eliminate any concerns about conflicting turning motions between that driveway and the intersection. So that summarizes the changes that I've found. Yes, sir.
This is wastewater easement area for Lot 1, but if I'm reading this correctly, it's actually in Lot 2,
That is correct.
and I thought the town had a prohibition about crossing a septic system on a different lot.
I can look into that in a second. I've got the ordinance with me, and I can let the applicant explain how this would lay out and the intent.
Well, the second part to that question is the driveway thing, and that is, if you're going to use this area, which is a repair area, and it's going to be dedicated as a drive, how then can it be two things, a repair area and a drive?
Okay, and I'll let the applicant explain. Now, that's up to Health Department if they approve that, but the applicant can explain the intent behind that.
Okay? We need to check on that, because I'm pretty sure that, this has come up on the beach before.
On the beach, for
Where, people on the east side wanted to put a septic system on the west side, and they weren't allowed to do that. I don't understand how we're allowing it here. Okay, and, all right, before I turn you folks loose, because I know you got a bunch, I have a basic question that came up. It's come up a couple of times, and I'm going to show my age here, because back when all the environmental things started coming up, and at one point you could dig a hole, but you couldn't fill it. Then you couldn't dig a hole or fill anything. And now we seem to be filling, some part of different lots. So here's my basic question. If I understand it correctly, you're allowed to fill 1/10 in 404 land, 1/10 of and I don't know if it's a lot or so many square feet or what it is, but if you're allowed to fill 1/10, let's say, of a lot, is that figured before all this subdivision, or would that be 1/10 of the lots that are being subdivided? In other words, each one of those lots, 1/10 of that and no more. So, and then also it shows, we're showing in several different places, we're allowing for fill in 404 of 5/10 acre of fill. Now, is that 5/10 of all the subdivision, or is that 5/10 of each of the individual lots where that is shown?
All right, to answer your question, it depends on when the permit is applied for. If it is all one lot, or in this case, it's actually 4 separate lots presently.
Right.
But if it's all on one lot when the subdivision is done, it doesn't mean you can't fill more than 1/10 of an acre, but there is a more stringent permitting process involved with the Corps of Engineers if you're seeking to fill more than that. So it doesn't mean you can't fill more than 1/10, but it does mean that it kicks it into it's a lot more complicated process in order to gain approval for something more than that. What the applicants are proposing to do would get that permit prior to the final subdivision of this. In other words, they would have to obtain that fill permit from the Corps of Engineers in order to build the road. So they would have to have that in hand before these lots were individually subdivided. So they will be applying for that permit before all these lots are subdivided. Now, after the subdivision occurs, and it becomes a little difficult for the Corps of Engineers in this regard, because they have to track this stuff, but every individual lot would have a right to apply for fill. If a fill permit has already been issued on that parcel, then the Corps, doesn't automatically approve that. It's something they have to review, and they may deny additional fill on that property. So that's something that, that could occur on an individual basis, but it depends on if the Corps has tracked how much fill was done on this as a large parcel. The engineer, Mr. Edis from Quibel, can also speak in a little more detail as to their intentions and his understanding of what the Corps might do in that regard as well. So.
All right.
So they're looking at a half an acre of fill total related to the development of the infrastructure for this subdivision.
So you're saying, as we look at this, and I'm looking at all the shaded areas that are indicating fill, that total, right now, this minute, only comes up to half or 5/10 of an acre?
That's correct.
It looks like more than that, don't it?
Me too.
All
Just
right.
have some little pockets here and there on that. So that's,
Joe, I got one question to ask you. You said, if I heard you right, so evidently a person who buys a lot here could have already purchased the property and has to go and apply again to the Army Corps of Engineers for a fill permit. So in essence, he might not get that fill permit?
if
So
there's
he might
already
have a
been a
lot.
fill permit issued for it, there are instances where the Corps of Engineers will deny them a second permit. For an
Yeah,
individual,
so-
if there's already been a fill permit issued on that property.
So who keeps track of the total?
Well, that's what the Corps of,
You know,
it's.
so
the
if
Corps
you're
of
the last
Engineers is
guy to
res-
build, and everybody else is taking their little pieces of fill, and now the Corps of Engineer can say,
Well, it's not
Too
that,
bad.
what they're doing now is issuing a permit based on this as one large
yeah,
parcel.
I understand.
Okay, and, there's a certain amount of fill allowed, and then as they it wouldn't be each one coming in and then, approving the first 10, but not approving the next whatever, but it would be them looking at, and I can say, I don't know specifically if they're looking at just the area where the fill was added, so whether they'd go back and look at, just as an example here, at lot 29, and how that would, whether that means that fill was added on that lot, so they couldn't do any additional. So I can't answer that specifically myself, but, but when you're looking at it, when you come back in for each individual parcel, they would have a right to request a fill permit for each individual.
So I guess my big question is, the infrastructure uses up so much. What's the total? I mean, do they work against a total? And at some point, all of this fill, which would be allowed for the whole parcel, has been used up? I just don't get how it works.
Well, it would be a specific, in other words, the Corps would look at a specific design and specific, in other words, the only areas that are approved, they don't give them an overall blanket number, but they're looking at where the specific areas that are proposed for fill, and they're evaluating how that would affect the wetland system, things of that nature, in issuing that permit. So that's what they're approving. It doesn't mean they just go and randomly, fill here and there. Mr. Edis can probably better answer if there is an overall number that, that the Corps would be looking at that they cannot exceed.
Well, there's a lot of wetlands here.
Yeah,
There are.
the thing that my question was, what was the total we were looking at? Were we looking at 5, tenths of an acre individual lots, or were we doing the whole thing? And we've just been
Yeah.
told it's the whole thing.
It's-
And that's a lot of shadows there, so,
Yeah,
I
well,
don't know who
and-
figures that.
And
but-
it doesn't sound like there's really a total that they're working against, from what we just heard.
Well, it
maybe
sounds
there-
like the
yeah.
total can change.
Can somebody talk? Yeah. Can he talk to this,
Engineer.
Joe?
Yep.
Yeah,
I think he can speak to it better than I can.
yeah.
We'll start with wetlands fill, and wetlands fill is, back up, I'm Warren Edis, one of the owners of Quabbel and Associates. I'm actually a professional geologist. Wetlands and understanding the Corps regulations is one of my main duties at Quabbel. There's not like there's a bank for each property. What there are what is called a general regional permit. Every 5 years, the Corps says, we've got 40 different permits, or 41 different permits as it is this 5-year period. And each one is for a specific activity. If you're a municipality and you want to fill wetlands for a utility line, you get a nationwide 12 permit. If you're a single lot owner and you want to fill for whatever reason, you get a nationwide 18 permit, which allows up to 1/10 of an acre. It's already authorized, but you have to prove that you're meeting the criteria. And often that includes mitigation. Roadways are covered under what's called a nationwide 14 permit. One of the conditions is that you can only fill a ½ acre or less for the nationwide 14 permit. So we're seeking a nationwide 14 permit to construct the roadway chiefly. It also helps us with the setbacks from any septic systems. We laid the road out in a way that when we filled for the road, we were also changing those wetlands lines so that we could permit septic systems for the lots. So we kind of minimized our impact by doing it that way. So you can request to fill the whole, you could say, I want to fill 6 acres. And you could go to the Corps and you could apply for what's called an individual permit. There's no cap on what an individual or an entity can request to have filled. If you want to fit within their box of allowable, where they've got preset conditions, and it's an expedited process. You meet all 10 or 50 conditions, you get the permit. The developer comes in, they want to see the whole project. How will the project work with fill? And then we have to prove to them that we've minimized our fill. And that's what this plan does. If the property changes hands and it gets subdivided, it is a new property owner's right to go back to the Corps and try to have additional fill. Sometimes, some subdivisions that's allowed. Currituck Club is one. Several examples on the Outer Banks where enough time has passed, things change. You can go back and try to fill additional wetlands. What they try to do, And the law sometimes helps them, sometimes it doesn't, and the laws change and makes it easier or harder for individuals to fill. What the Corps tries to do is they want to see that this project can be built with the amount of fill you say up front. And if that can happen, then they're generally okay with it. But that's not to say that somebody could purchase a lot and come back. They could request a fill. They may or may not have that ability. And the Corps is, they're the entity that tracks it, also the Division of Water Quality. When you make a request, there's two laws that you have to follow, and it's Section 404 and Section 401 of the Clean Water Act. The state administers the 401, the Corps administers, the federal side is the 404. You have to adhere to both laws. They change every 5 years. You get new permits every 5 years. So it's a constant upkeep, and that's why plats expire. You know, when we went out and delineated these wetlands, I personally delineated them. That line expires, and then the Corps and DWQ have the right to come back and reevaluate it. So you just have to, that's just part of the environmental process. And there's, you know, we're talking about these shaded areas. One thing to keep in mind, this is a 1 to 80 scale map, and it's been tricking me too, especially when I was looking at the driveway distances. It looks like a little bitty area, but it's a longer area. I think that's a little bit deceiving, but a half an acre is, you know, it's a half an acre. And we're using that for the roadway, and we're also double dipping. We're using it for septic setbacks. So that's calculated by, you know, AutoCAD. It's automated. So we're comfortable that that's only a half acre of fill that we're requesting, and we're comfortable that we can get that permit. It's a permit that fits within their general regional permits. We meet all the criteria. We will have to provide mitigation. That'll be a payment into a mitigation bank and or some preservation of wetlands. Typically, you pay into a mitigation bank. They use that money to restore wetlands throughout the state. So that's kind of the wetlands debrief.
All right, now that's good. I've had a lot of questions over a long period of time. It's very confusing to the general public. You see somebody fill someplace, and you say, well, how did they do that? And then somebody else, you know, gets denied something, and how come when you see somebody else do one other thing? So that helps me. Now, it still leaves the question I asked about the wastewater area for Lot 1
Yes.
crossing the boundary.
Yes, and let me see if I can, put it together. So, there we go. So we have this wastewater easement area, and these lots would have advanced treatment systems, so they're not conventional wastewater systems. They'll be small, and they'll have different configurations. What we would propose to do is actually drive over the line that distributes to the field. We won't ever drive on the field, whether it would be active or repair. You would never be allowed to put a driveway over a wastewater field. You can, however, drive over a pipe leading to a wastewater field, and you can do that within an easement. That doesn't answer the question about having easements on other properties. We were under the assumption that we could do that. But we were not proposed to drive over a wastewater field or put any improvements on the field itself. We would drive over the pipe that leads to the field. That's done routinely. We've had easements where we've done that. We don't see it, from our perspective as engineers, that's not an issue. You design the pipe to be driven over, and you write it into the easement, and you keep on going. That's something that we've done in the past. So we're comfortable with that, and I guess we need to get comfortable with the fact that there's a off-site, on-site wastewater.
Right. That's,
Which we do in Dare County and Currituck County. I wasn't aware that there was an ordinance in Kitty Hawk that said it was.
I think there is. Joe's going to have to fill us in. In the meantime, I think other council members have some questions. So let's start over here with Jeff.
Okay, Joe's kept us up to date with all of the codes and requirements, and then there's one other place that I have to go look, and that's our CAMA land use plan that we have to go by. And so I went and I did some research, and under Chapter 2 on page 17 of the CAMA land use plan, under the Kitty Hawk vision statement, the last paragraph, it starts out at the very beginning of this heading with Kitty Hawk is a cottage community. And then it goes on to list about 10 things. And the very last one, so it would read, Kitty Hawk is a cottage community intent upon remaining a low-density, family-oriented community, a year-round community, a retirement community, a traditional coastal village community, and a resort tourist community in harmony with the natural environment. Okay, that's the vision statement. And then I'm going to go to another little section here. And this is in Chapter 8, and it's going to be page 22 under issue 25, and it's types, densities, locations, units per acre, anticipated residential development, and service necessary to support such development. And it says, the town supports the use of adopted zoning regulations, subdivisions, and development requirements, and land use planning concept that will ensure that the types, density, and locations of anticipated residential development and necessary support services are consistent with the existing low-density, low-rise residential character of the town. I'm going to ask my question to our attorney. How are we determining with the amount of 404 wetlands on this piece of property, even though we allow 404 to be calculated in the size, when you look at this piece of property, I can't help but see high density for the amount of buildable land in conjunction with the natural terrain of this piece of property. So my question is, how are we determining to go along with our land use plan that this is considered low-density, family-oriented community?
So you have set your minimum lot sizes, I think, that's 15,000 square feet in this section, Joe. So you have set that you have to have a 15,000 square foot lot.
Correct.
And that's your, how you calculate your density, how many lots, 15,000 square foot lots can you get in this subdivision? And my recollection of looking at this is all of these lots meet or exceed 15,000 square feet. So they have met the density requirement that the town has set for what you have determined to be low density. I know in Currituck, what they did over there, you have to have 3 acres over there now if you're not hooked up to a septic, central septic system or something. So, you know, they've changed it, and that's how you determine what your low density is. If you got a 15,000 square foot lot, you can build on it. Assuming you can get the septic requirements, meet all of that.
This meets the standards.
Even if,
doesn't
say, the 3/4 of this is 404 and we're using 1/4 of it and we're completely filling that, that's still low density.
Well, by your definition of what a suitable lot size is.
I understand the suitable lot size, I'm talking about.
Well, low density doesn't have a definition in it.
So it doesn't have a definition.
Well,
So is that up to my determination, or is that the only determination we have?
Mayor Perry, could I speak to this?
Yeah, I'm
please.
sorry, go ahead. I understand where this is going, but I know where it's going to end up. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Mr. Pruitt, the land use plan does have a definition for low density. If it's referenced on the page with the future land use map and in that section there. And it does mention in there about 2 units an acre is what it says on that. Now, for what it's worth, as Mr. Michael has accurately set up, that's not completely consistent with the zoning, with any zoning district in the town, except would it be Kitty Hawk Woods would be the only district that would have a density of that, or greater, or pardon me, or lesser. So that would be, that it is defined in the land use plan as 2 units an acre. And what I wanted to point out then is that in looking at you've got about 13 acres, again, the total property is 22, a little over 22 acres. A little over 9 of that is in wetlands. So you have 13 acres of, if you want to just refer to as high ground there, and in this case, you've got a proposal for 29 units on that, which is just a tad over 2 units an acre. So it's, while it isn't 2 units an acre, it's darn close as far as if you want to pull out all the wetlands and just look at the high ground, that's the density we're talking about here is 2 units an acre, which would be greater than almost any subdivision that has been approved. And, most of the things we have are 15,000 square foot lots, First Flight Ridge, Harbor Bay, Hickory Ridge, things like, most of those are at 15,000.
But most of those, all 15,000 square feet are regular buildable land. And where this is so much 404 wetland and other wetland here, that to me, it seems like if this was all a flat field, then I can understand. But it just seems like to me, with the way that this is set up here, that it seems to be kind of intense for this area. Just the way I see it. I see it different than if I was riding down the bypass and there was a great big section and we were doing lots. It's just the way I see it. And that's all I have.
On that subject, let me follow it up just a second. Joe, if I recall correctly, at one point in the town, I think 12,000 square feet was sufficient, then it was raised to 15,000 square feet. There was also a change that took into effect, if somebody had a piece of property, and we have this in certain areas because that's the reason change was, a house was built on enough land, high land, if you will, to put the house on, but then another hammock or piece of that land was used to put the septic systems, all one lot. But I thought there was a change that said it had to have 15,000 square feet of buildable land for a property, so that you couldn't put a house on one hammock and a septic system on another hammock and have marsh, everywhere else. Is that correct or not?
That is not correct as far as, in having reviewed subdivisions and all that. The only thing I've found in the ordinance is that we do exclude the wetlands that would be designated as, we commonly refer to them as CAMA wetlands. That area is excluded, and this subdivision does have small portions of lots that are excluded for that reason. There are small areas along the one side that are excluded from, because they're classified as CAMA wetlands.
But that doesn't include
But the core
404.
stuff is all included, and I'm not aware of any a statement to that effect in the subdivision ordinance about needing to have that much high ground.
Can I ask a question about what we're looking at right now? With the exception of the question about the wastewater easement area being on a different lot from the lot that it's going to service, is there anything about what we're looking at here that is contrary to the subdivision standards as they are currently?
No, there's nothing that's contrary to those.
Anybody else?
I'm just going to cut right to the chase and just give my opinion on it. We talked before in the last council meeting, I told you I was not for this project because of the fact that it was intense. And guys, it's the most intense project I can think of my time since I've been on the planning board, which is from 1991, all through my council years, and here it is 2014. I haven't seen a project that goes and takes and utilizes as much property as this one's done. Now, that's credit to you. You've done an outstanding job. But still, this thing is just jam-packed. My concern is, and I will get to the back side of this in a second, but my concern is when I asked a question a while ago, how about Billy Bob who buys a lot? And then you have your half an acre filled, you've done your stuff, you go about your day. Billy Bob's got to go and get that lot filled to build his house and do what he needs to do on it. That's what this project, being as intense as this is, I think that jeopardizes that. That's not what Kitty Hawk's about. This project, I would be all for it. You put 24 lots in there or something and just make them, so they're all big, great residential community, I ain't got any problem with that. I don't have a problem with being there. But as intense this is, I really have a problem with it. And I've stated since it first came to us, listen, it came, I didn't feel comfortable with it then, I don't feel comfortable with it now. I called our attorney this morning and I asked the question, I said, listen, this project, I have a problem with it, does it meet the criteria that's laid out in the subdivision, just what you asked? The answer I got back was yes. So you guys know what you're supposed to do. I mean, you've done what you're supposed to do, you cross your Ts, you put the little 2 lots out front there, hooked it to the Woods Road, to West Kitty Hawk Road, so you could get as many lots back there as possible. You've done a great job. But you're jamming a whole bunch of stuff, y'all, into a little piece of 22-acre property. And if you were around here in Irene, the man across the street had 3 foot of water, and that whole area was underwater. The whole area that you're going to build on was underwater. Just point being. Well, another thing is, when I was in Elizabeth City, built my first house, didn't have a person on this side of me, didn't have a person on this side of me, had this big old thing called Thunder Road behind me, deer running through, rabbits and all that stuff. Guy built a house beside me. Guy went on the house the other side of me, built a house. My wife was crying, oh my God, they changed my neighborhood, it's gone. But the guy had a right to do it. You understand? That's what me and Steve talked this morning. You got rights, and you have rights. But understand, this is really intense, and I don't want to vote for this. I don't, because it's so intense.
Well, I think what comes up here, based on what, I've heard from you and Jeff, is that if we want to change the potential for this kind of project coming before the council, because we feel like the density is too high, then it would mean changing the standards. And if we feel like the standards aren't supporting what we feel is the vision of the town, then there's, only a few fingers could be pointed, and they'd be coming in this direction. So it's up to, I would say it's up to us if we want to basically decrease the potential for high-density projects like this. The only way to go about it is to make some changes to the standards.
But that won't affect this.
No,
No,
you
it
can't.
won't affect this at all, but, you
But-
can't, we cannot turn down something that is in accordance with the standards that we've set for these subdivisions.
But how about if you don't feel like that it fits in with the Kitty Hawk vision of fit, even though it fits the standards, you don't actually think that it's in harmony with the natural environment? Is that a ground? I mean, is this land use, can't be
That's it.
used for, if individual's interpretation doesn't think it's in harmony?
No.
Well, the land use plan are the statements you've made about how you want the town to develop. The standards that you actually adopt in your ordinances are the standards that are going to be applied.
That's right.
And they're not always exactly in symmetry. As Joe pointed out, your land use plan says, 2 per acre. Well, 15,000 square feet is not 2 per acre, but that's what you've set as your standard for the minimum lot sizes.
And Kitty Hawk's land use plan is specifically not regulatory. It's
It's a guide.
a guide.
Yeah. So, Craig, do you have anything to add?
A quick comment, I've been listening, and there's a lot of people in this room who have lived here a lot longer than I have. I've lived here since 1995, and I know how many times we've had stormwater issues back in this same area. I have a concern about this development. It's beautiful, which I'm like Urban, you guys have done your job, you have met the requirements. I've just got a big concern about this development being built in that location.
Okay. Joe, have we answered the question about off-site septic? Or do we need time for that? In which case, we might need to table this for the next meeting, if you need time to research that.
Yeah, I've looked at the, the area of the towns in the zoning ordinance that relates to septic systems and do not see a specific reference to that other than it requires the health department approval. So I don't know if that requirement's coming from them or not. I'd certainly be glad if if that's an issue the council needs a more definitive answer. I'd certainly be glad to research that further, but that's the best I can give you this evening.
All right, there are two things I'd like to have researched, and because of them, I'm going to recommend that we table this until the next meeting. That is one of them, because I certainly was of the understanding that other people had been denied the right to cross 12 and go
Well,
on the other
that
side.
was crossing the road. Now, I happen to know on the oceanfront side that there are separate delineated lots, but if they're adjacent, the septic for one, the house is on one lot.
Well,
So
let's-
it might be across the road, but it just needs to, we just need to get that
Let's get it
settled.
researched. And the
Yeah.
other thing is, I also thought, in fact, I had been told that when they changed to the 15,000, they also changed so that you couldn't split up a lot, the way I described it, using swamp in between parts of it. And I'd like to make sure that we have a handle on that before we go forward. If those two things are not at issue, then the rest of it's going to fall in place, and we don't have any choice but to accept this. So, I'm going to recommend that we table this until the next meeting, which is July 7th. And then we'll get the researched answers to what we have. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
You wanted to say something?
I was going to ask if there's a way for us to, because I understand a little bit about the whole sale, and the only reason we came back is because the sale of the property is not happening. This is a condition of the sale. If we can't meet these conditions, then the sale doesn't happen. There's a lot of folks that are anxious. You guys don't need to know the whole backstory, but there's a partnership that's splitting, that needs to split for a lot of reasons. If there was a way there could be a conditional approval until we can provide you with the assurances you need, rather than wait a whole month, we may be able to get those assurances in a much shorter period of time. I'm just throwing that out there. It may be too late. It may not be something you would want to consider, but we would beg you to help expedite this, because it's not for me necessarily, and it's not necessarily for Gordon. There's a lot of other people involved, the sellers being one, and I think that it's a matter that if it goes out another month, I know it was an issue that we had to come back, and it was a problem. I'm just saying this, and potentially you could, if there's a way we could do it that way, I'm asking.
I want to hear some answers to the questions we have before we go any further. I personally am not willing to go for conditional. I want to know the facts, and we have a lot of questions, and I'd like to get the answers. And unless the attorney tells me that the motion we have and the second we have is not appropriate,
No, it's appropriate.
then I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There are no nays.
Thank you.
Sorry. All right. That was a good discussion.
I learned some stuff out of it.
I
I
did
didn't know
too.
before.
And we've got more to learn, I think. All right. Next, we have new business, and we have appointments to town boards and committees. And Lynn has been gracious in that she's given us all the information we really should need, and even a proposed way of doing the nominations. So, we have planning board, we have two-year term, officers to be appointed by council for 1 year. Okay. So first off, let's do the planning board. Do I hear a nomination for planning board?
I move to reappoint Oscar Northern and Brian Parker as regular members of the planning board with a term to expire June 2016.
Do I hear another nomination? All right. Do I hear a second for that nomination?
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Looks like they've been reappointed.
Okay, we need the alternate now.
Right.
I move to reappoint Dylan Tillett as an alternate member on the planning board with a term to expire in June 2016.
Any other nominations? Do I hear a second to that nomination?
I'll second that one also.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now we need to reappoint chairman and vice chair.
Okay. I move to reappoint Oscar Northern as chairman and reappoint Lynn McLean as vice chairman with terms to expire in June 2015.
Any further nominations? A second for that nomination?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving on to Board of Adjustment. And here I have a question before we go any further. Mr. Attorney, we have an applicant that is part of the Rec Committee, and she wants to be on the Board of Adjustment. I don't see a problem, do you?
She's on the Recreation Committee? No,
Correct.
no.
It's non-judicial of any sort that
That's
we know of.
correct. No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we had that on the record. All right. We need to appoint a regular member to an unexpired term of Barb Connery. Do I hear a nomination? Anybody?
Do we have a, let's see.
Was this Christine?
Well, Christine would be the alternate, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
You got an addition.
I gave her some suggestions.
okay. I move to appoint Chris Jenkins as a regular member to the unexpired term of Barb Carnery on the Board of Adjustment with a term to expire in June 2016.
Any further nominations? Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
And I move to appoint Jim Garrity as vice chairman on the Board of Adjustment. This appointment is until a successor is voted upon by the town council. This is temporary,
Yeah.
okay?
All right. Any further nominations? Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Okay, now I move to appoint Christine Buckner to the unexpired term of Chris Jenkins as an alternate on the Board of Adjustment, term to expire June 2016.
Any further nominations? Do I hear a second for that nomination?
Second.
2015, sorry, 2015. Change the expiration date to 2015.
Okay. Is the second okay with that adjustment?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. You got something else?
Okay, yeah, this is the only one I really know a whole lot about here. Let's see. I move to reappoint Ricky Brake and Tom Hefner to the Recreation Committee with terms to expire in 2018.
I second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Lynn, you got everything you need?
I've got it, thank you.
All right, very good. And now we need post-storm debris cleanup, and that had been put on the consent agenda, but I wanted some explanation for the benefit of folks, because the county is going with a different contractor this year, something called TAG out of Louisiana, and we'll be going with the same one that we had last year, and I want the manager to explain why that's not a problem for us for FEMA and other reasons. So, John, you're up.
Well, it's my understanding, Mr. Mayor, that in the event that Kitty Hawk has an event that does not affect the rest of the county, then the town is required to have its own contract for this debris cleanup and removal. In the event that there is a countywide event, then the town will also use the same contractor that the county uses for that event. So in order for us to obtain the FEMA funding, that's the way we have been doing it in the past. And I believe there has been an event where we had to depend on our own contractor in order to be eligible for FEMA reimbursement.
Actually, it was state reimbursement, wasn't it? State FEMA?
Maybe the state, yeah.
Yeah, after Sandy.
Yeah,
Because
state.
it didn't meet the threshold for the
For
county
the county,
or
county did
federal.
not meet the threshold, that's
Right.
correct.
So, but the main thing I wanted to get across to council and residents of Kitty Hawk is that the fact that we're going with a different contractor from the county doesn't put us at odds with the county or with FEMA possible reimbursement. So that'll cover us. So
Right, that's correct. Uh-huh.
that's the main thing, and that's the reason I asked him to pull it off of the consent agenda. So we need a motion to accept or not accept. Do I hear a motion?
Okay. I move to award the contract for debris removal and street repairs to Crowder Gulf LLC
A second.
for disaster recovery assistance.
All right, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. And then, John, you had a post-storm facility repair, but explain that one. We didn't get any bids or something.
Well, as far as the post-storm facility repair, Willie had advertised for that, but no bids were received on time for the agenda, and this will be re-advertised. If bids are received, it will be placed on a future agenda. So that's where we stand with that, and that will also tie into any type of reimbursement for damages as a result of an event.
So as
And that one
long,
deals with town
Yeah.
facilities.
Yes.
Right.
so as long as we get that in place before there's a storm, we're okay, or?
Should be.
Okay.
Right, Willie?
If something should happen prior to that being in place, since we have advertised and have gone through the procedure to get a bid, we can negotiate with local contractors and we'll still be eligible for reimbursement.
Okay.
Good deal. All right, thank you. And now we have reports from town manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just wanted to mention to council that Steve had recently received the defendant's response to discovery for the Winks situation. Ben Andrews had calculated the amount of fines that are due based on the days the owner says they were closed. And Steve is now in a position to put this on for a motion for summary judgment. The owner's attorney asked again about a possible settlement, and Steve told him to make a proposal, and it would be forwarded to council for consideration. So that's where we're at with that. Is that correct?
That's it.
Mr. Attorney?
And you haven't received that.
I haven't received that, and I will draft the motion for summary judgment and an affidavit for Ben Alexander to sign about what the fines are. And I think it's a summary judgment matter that the court would consider as a matter of law.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Also want to mention to council that the Poseidon and Goosander area street emergency pumping facility project has been completed, and the final cost of the project is $68,926, which was the original contract sum. So we came in at the same amount for the contract itself. So that was pretty good, I think. Other thing I wanted to mention is the status of the coastal planning and engineering as far as the beach nourishment project. They have completed approximately 6.8% of the scope of work as of May 1st of this year. Their work completed includes their environmental documentation, beach profile surveys, the calibration of the S-Beach model in preparation of the vulnerability analysis, the preliminary overtopping analysis, collection of native beach samples, and the coordination of offshore sand search. Their highest priority at this time is to complete the preliminary geophysical survey. So that is the report for the status for coastal planning and engineering.
And you and I have a meeting
On the 19th?
on the 19th.
Yes, sir, that's correct. And that's all I have for council.
Thank you. Anything?
Nothing else for you other than what John has told you.
All right. And how about town council? Jeff?
I have nothing.
No, sir.
Craig?
I think we need to, once we get some answers back from Joe, we do need to maybe look at, because it seemed like I was on the planning board and we looked at having the buildable lots size in the calculations on septic systems
I
and so
thought so
forth.
too.
I mean, maybe I was dreaming it, but if we didn't, because this then is very intrusive on this, this development, and maybe we need to look at something and change a little bit of stuff, because, you know, you made a good point. You know, even you like it, you live with it, or you change it. You don't want to go too far the other way. You also couldn't cut a tree in the town of Cadott too, by the way. You couldn't fill a hole, dig a hole, dig a hole, cut a tree. You could plant a tree, though. They didn't mind you planting one. But every damn thing else you couldn't do.
All right. Ian? All right. I don't have anything. The only thing I will say, I had to carry the daughter up to Duke, and I went by way of Williamston, and I stopped just this side of Williamston. She had to go to the grocery store for something. Anyway, while we were there in that little mall, there was a place that had video game in operation.
Yeah, some of the counties are letting them do it.
Really?
Halifax County is the biggest example I can talk about, because, you know, they had the Dolly Parton development they did over there, and what they put in there were video game places to help generate revenue, since the county was holding the
Right.
debt on that, I guess, and so some of the places have made a decision they're gonna let them operate,
Really?
under the theory that the software that they have put in doesn't meet the definitions of what the legislature has designated as being illegal.
Isn't that interesting? Well, I looked and I thought, are they really doing that? But they were. All right. I don't have anything else. Now we come to the final public comment. Anyone wish to speak? Most of the ones left. All right, let the record show no one came forward. I hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're done.